Could Space King Marines survive in Warhammer 40,000? Perhaps. Now, I call them Space King Marines because there's no official universal name for them other than knowing that the characters and what legion they serve in. And also, there's only 2 episodes until they reveal more, so this is just the video isolated into those 2 episodes. But by any chance you lived in a cave or whatever, and if you don't know about it and you scratch your ass and you smell your fingers from it, I'll summarize it. So, 40k, if we ignore that they have no canon anymore, ideally, 40k is the eternal war of multiple conflicts of different factions all over the galaxy, and the main character in the scenario is humanity, a degrading empire on its last legs of survival, and before the apocalypse arrives to its doom, but they will fight on until there is nothing left, because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Now, sounds cool, and I did miss out a couple of parts, but that's mainly the whole thing. And when it comes to Space King is a own series by itself where it has legions of Space King Marines finding relics of Space King and having its own adventures of Star Defender, Bryce, Chestnut, and Haymonger. So it's more kind of like a character comedic story-driven series. But what I'm more interested, because I've seen key details when it comes to the animation itself, is in a broader view, they do seem to be technologically capable to survive in Warhammer 40,000. Now, it might be vague because we're seeing mostly visual stuff of what we can see and interpret and what the authors are showing and shows what they're capable of as well. So like the one good example that I thought of that I'm just assuming that they could just teleport to one ship to another. And now the question will be is, okay, what is the range of that teleport? Like, does that go like into the warp or something? Or does it go through another dimension to jump to one thing to another? Or just has like a super long range teleport, which is, if that is the case, that would be super powerful. And when it comes to their weaponry, it almost looks like it's either like a plasma gun or some sort of a laser weapon that is using batteries for energy. Very similar how the Guard are using their las weapons. It could be that, or it could be just plasma weapons that are just working efficiently and fine. And also, there could be a possibility that their melee weapons is really strong. They could just break their own armor as well. A good example I can think of is either the hammer or the mace that are being shown in the animations. And also in the pilot episode where it shows the Titan screaming its vocal cords that it can just not only destroy whoever's on top of the building or in the building, but it can destroy the building itself, which that is fucking quite powerful. That's more powerful than our average noise marines. Like, just imagine that a noise marine is just against that Titan, is like, oh, symphony to my ears, and it just explodes into multiple pieces. Now, I'm not too sure what else that Titan can do, like, shooting, like, weapons or what kind of weaponry it has. Can he even teleport? Does it have shields? But it's so short that I can't even know what exactly it does. But from that, him yelling and shit and breaks buildings, it sounds pretty powerful as well. Damn. And when it comes to their armor and weaponry in general, it seems to be well advanced, and their armor is to a certain extent well protected to most of the stuff, unless it's like either a melee weapon that is really heavy or maybe just some anti-weapon. Or not only that, their own weapons as well, because you can see it from Chestnut shooting one of the engineers in the Coagulators Legion just being one shot through the head. But then again, there'll be so many other questions like, if it's meant to be like a las weapon or what I mean las weapon, I mean like a laser weapon or a plasma weapon. Like, was it fully charged to the point that you could just one shot only and goes through armor or something like that? We don't really know. But as far as we know visually, they could just one shot through armor. And the final part, which I think is the most powerful thing when it comes to this type of technology, is the globules. And why do I say that? Because as far as we understand when it comes to Space Marines with their gene seed and how they're built in that, for them, it takes them like weeks or months to even build their anatomy of their body. But the globules, just swapping the nuts and just putting the big ones in and just transforming the human body so quickly, that is really powerful. And not only that, the globules not only just builds a Space King Marine, but they also seem like the ones who died and retrieved of their globules, they can be transferred to another host and still retain their memories of who they are. So not only, just imagine this. Let's just say, for example, the most famous captain or chapter master died in the battlefield, but he still has his balls still intact. Like the apothecary can just pick up those globules, put it in, and then just put it to the next host, and it's still the chapter master. That, I think, is the most advanced and the most fastest way to maintain your numbers and still grow. And I think that's probably one of the most powerful things when it comes to what they have at their disposal. Obviously, when I mean powerful, I mean like growing their numbers and they can go even bigger if they wanted to. So that's all we can gather what we understand about Space King and these Marines. And I could also stretch it that Space King Marines, to a certain extent, are able to survive in the 40k scenario. Now the question will be, okay, where we're gonna put them? Like we have to figure out where we're gonna put them, because obviously if they're in like near a Imperium world that is close to the home of Terra, they would be annihilated. Or if they go close to a like an Orc world, they might have a fighting chance, but they might get fucking annihilated. Or near the Tyranids, they might get annihilated. Necrons, they might get annihilated. So so many losing situations. Tau, they most likely have a fighting chance, but then again, we don't really know. So we could put in a quiet world that is maybe inhabited, or just the most quiet Imperium world. So they can just go and inherit that planet, or just go in and grab some new recruits and jump one to another. Because it seems like, at the very least in those 2 episodes, most of them are just spacefaring. Like I don't see them having like a home planet or anything. Maybe some of them do, but I do know that Hatemonger mentioned that it talks about his home planet and all that of Hate. So it is likely that some legions in Space King Marines might have some worlds, but as far as we are aware for now, visually, they are most likely spacefaring and just grabbing recruits left and right wherever they can. So yeah, where I'm thinking about is we're gonna put them most likely at one of the edges of the galaxy, far away from the Imperium and most likely from dangers. Well, actually, that's cheating. Well, I did say if we put them in any other scenario, they get fucking deleted anyways. But for the sake of it, let's put them in somewhere where they have at least a fighting chance, or they can build the numbers when they can. Because if any of the enemies of the Space King Marines might notice them too early, they will just get destroyed. Now the question will be, what is the goal of it? And I think will be the same like they do in the Space King videos, is to find relics of Space King and await for his return. Because if they just sucked from one dimension to another, I think they will just say, oh, you know, maybe Space King sent us here for an important mission or some other things. So they can pretty much rationalize what is most plausible thing. So let's say, you know, they go around, they beefed up their numbers, and maybe inherited a planet and then start growing their empire if needed be. And then let's just say if now I forgot to mention, we don't really know how big is the Space King Marines army, because they do mention there are legions. So it could most likely be more than 1,000 compared to Space Marines. Because for all I know, it could be 5,000, 3,000, 2,000, maybe 100,000 Space King Marines. We don't really know. But then again, in the pilot episode where all the Star Defenders legions were just fighting the aliens, and they're fighting all over the planet apparently, and with so many bodies on the bottom, I think it's most likely they have, at the very least, about 10k, if we just make that rough estimation. Maybe more than that, because the bigger number, the better, am I right? So let's say they have about 10k, maybe more or less, and let's just say they go against the Imperium and the Space Marines and their Navy force. Now the question is, do they even have a fighting chance? Now, it would really depend on the situation. If it's just ordinary guards, Sisters of Battle, or additional forces like Custodians, Space Marines, so pretty much a united force altogether, they have no chance. Of course, they wouldn't have no chance. But if it's like a one-off against specific factions like Sisters of Battle, destroyed. Space Marines, it really depends on the situation, but I think to a certain extent, it's a 50-50. But I would also say, by the technology that the Space King Marines have, I think they would have a bit of an upper hand of the Space Marines. Why? Because if a Space Marine loses a Chapter Master, then there goes all the knowledge and tactfulness and all that, they lost a major player in the game. Meanwhile, if they have a Chapter Master in the Space King Marines and they retrieve their globules and could just move it to another recruit and just grow them up, then they haven't really lost anything. And I think that's what is so important and powerful with these guys. And I think they have a fighting chance to fight against the Space Marines. And not only you died and relived again to another recruiter's host, but because you died and you knew how you died and how you lost, you get better at it. Now, if they fight against the Tyranids, there's no fucking chance. because Tyranids by default, they're like the end-all faction to a certain extent, but it also depends on like how big or little their army is. So if it's just a little army, they have a chance to fight them, but if it's a whole invasion of a planet like they usually do, no fucking chance. And also, obviously, Tyranids are quite dangerous when they grab someone's DNA as they consume it and go into the swimming pool and then come back out stronger, better as it is. So already by default, like, Tyranids will lose. Now, when it comes to the Necrons, I don't see any alliances going between them because the Space King Marines do really hate the alien with a passion, unlike today's Black Templars that trying to hold hands with the Eldar, pieces of shit. They're heretics. So I most likely would say they will hate them, but I think, again, it would depend on the situation of, okay, is this a fully awakened Necron world? Yeah, they'll be completely destroyed. But if it's like some skirmishes here and there, most likely. The Tau? Yeah, no, I think they have a chance to go against them. Now, when it comes to the Eldar, yeah, I don't think they can beat against the Eldar, just how minimal the Eldar are. And they try to take like skirmish battles and not to engage fully. And the Orcs? I mean, might be a fun sport for hate mongers, but I don't really see if they're able to fight them off, because how Orcs work is very similar with Tyranids. They're just a horde army, and it will really depend on the situation how big or small their fleet is. So like, in conclusion of all that is because they're, to a certain extent, they're very similar like Tau. They're too small, and if they fight against like the full might of each faction, they will just get destroyed. But at the same time, if they meet on the same level as the Space King Marines, they have the advantage based on what their technology is, their armor, and the weaponry they have available. And also, the one thing is, no girls allowed, so they will just destroy Sisters of Battle with no contest. That is all for this video. You can check me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, and YouTube memberships for that, and you can show your support over there. And you can check me on Discord or YouTube memberships for any updates. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, my brothers, and take care.